If life feels hard right now, if you are trying your best but see no results, if you sometimes ask yourself, why me? Why is everything so difficult? Listen carefully. It's not because you are weak. It's not because God forgot you. And it's not because you are failing. This is why it's hard. 1. Because what God is preparing is big. The Bible says in Isaiah 55:8, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." What you're going through is not punishment, it is preparation. God never prepares a great destiny with an easy process. The greater the calling, the heavier the process. If your life feels hard, it's not a sign of rejection, it's often a sign of selection. 2, because God is shaping you on the inside. Look at gold. Before it shines, it must go through fire. The Bible says in 1 Peter 1:7, "These trials will show that your faith is genuine, more precious than gold." God works where no one can see. Your character, your patience, your faith, your discipline. People will celebrate your success later, but they never see the silent nights, the tears, and the doubts. 3, because God is teaching you to depend on Him alone. Sometimes God removes human support so you can discover His faithfulness. It's easy to trust God when everything is fine, but when everything falls apart, that's when faith becomes real. Psalm 66:10 says, "For you, God, tested us, you refined us like silver." This hard season may be the moment God is teaching you how to walk without applause, without validation, without help from people. 4, because the enemy attacks what has value. Never forget this. The enemy doesn't attack empty lives. If you are under pressure, discouraged, or tired, it's often because your life carries purpose. Jesus said in John 10:10, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy." But God never said the enemy would win. 5, this is not the end. It's the beginning. What you're experiencing right now does not define your future. This is a season, not a destination. The Bible reminds us in Galatians 6:9, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest." The key words are, at the proper time. Not your time, not other people's time, but God's time. Strong ending, cliffhanger. If it's hard, it's not because you're losing. It's because something is being born. But here's the truth. What God does in silence, many people are not strong enough to endure. Why most people quit too soon? Many people never reach what God promised them, not because they lack talent, not because they weren't chosen, but because they stopped too early. And this is painful, because most people quit when the breakthrough is closer than ever. 1. Confusion often comes before clarity. There is a moment where nothing makes sense. Prayer feels quiet. Progress seems invisible. Direction feels blurry. That moment is dangerous, not because God left, but because people start doubting the process. The Bible says in Habakkuk 2:3, "Though the vision lingers, wait for it, it will surely come." Delay does not mean denial. Silence does not mean absence. 2. Pressure increases when purpose is near. Think about it. A storm grows stronger right before land appears. Resistance intensifies when destiny is close. The enemy does not waste energy on empty journeys. He focuses on paths that matter. That is why discouragement feels heavier now. That is why fatigue tries to speak louder. Not because you're losing, but because you are advancing. 3. God often hides the reward to protect you. If you saw everything ahead, you might rush instead of mature. If you knew the outcome too soon, you might skip the transformation. God values who you become, not just what you receive. James 1:4 says, "Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete." What feels slow is often shaping depth. What feels unfair is often building endurance. 4. Walking by faith means moving without proof. Most people want confirmation before commitment. God asks for trust before evidence. That's where many stop. Faith is not comfort. Faith is movement without guarantees. And those who continue, even while unsure, are the ones who witness fulfillment. 5. Your consistency is more powerful than your emotions. Feelings change. Motivation fades. Faith remains a decision. Those who arrive are not always the strongest. They are the ones who refuse to turn back. You don't need to feel ready. You need to stay faithful. Ending, strong transition. If you are tired, pause, but don't retreat. If you feel weak, rest, but don't surrender, because what waits ahead is worth what you're walking through. Why God allows isolation before elevation. There is a phase many people misunderstand, a season where conversations disappear, support becomes rare, silence grows louder, and the question rises quietly, why am I walking alone? This stage is not rejection, it is intentional separation. 1. Distance creates clarity. Noise distracts purpose. Crowds dilute direction. Constant voices confuse discernment. That is why growth often begins away from attention. When everything slows down, the heart starts hearing what was always buried. The Bible says in Hosea 2:14, I will lead her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. Some messages are too personal for public spaces. 2. Solitude reveals true strength. When encouragement fades, inner resolve is tested. Not everyone stays focused without applause. Not everyone remains grounded without recognition. This is where endurance replaces excitement. Jesus himself withdrew from people before decisive moments. Isolation is not emptiness. It is concentration. 3. Detachment protects what is forming. Not every connection deserves access to what is developing inside you. Premature exposure damages fragile beginnings. That is why progress is sometimes hidden, not delayed, shielded. Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity. Visibility belongs to the right moment. 4. Loneliness reshapes dependence. When human reassurance weakens, spiritual reliance strengthens. Comfort zones dissolve. Expectations shift. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. You begin standing without leaning, moving without approval, continuing without explanation. This is maturity in motion. 5. Preparation happens quietly, promotion publicly. Foundations are never built on stages. They are laid underground. What rises later must survive weight first. Those unseen chapters determine how long success lasts. If this period feels heavy, it's because capacity is increasing. If your world feels smaller right now, it's because focus is sharpening. What seems like distance is actually positioning. When progress looks like going backward. There are moments when effort seems wasted, steps feel reversed, momentum disappears. You look around and wonder, why does everything feel worse after I tried so hard? This stage confuses many people because advancement does not always move forward visibly. 1. Reduction often comes before expansion. Before something grows stronger, it is sometimes stripped down. Less comfort, fewer options, tighter conditions. This is not loss, it is refinement. The Bible says in John 15:2, every branch that bears fruit he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Cutting does not mean removal of value, it means preparation for increase. 2. What feels like retreat may be realignment. Not every pause is a stop. Not every step back is failure. Sometimes direction must be corrected before speed can return. If the foundation is slightly off, progress becomes dangerous. So the journey slows. Adjustments happen quietly. Alignment takes priority over acceleration. 3. Growth is uncomfortable by nature. Transformation stretches identity. Old habits resist change. Familiar patterns fight to remain. That tension you feel comes from leaving what was known. The Bible says in 2 Corinthians 5:17, the old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. What is emerging cannot fit inside what existed before. 4. God measures depth, not speed. People celebrate quick results. He values strong roots. Speed impresses crowds. Stability sustains destiny. When progress slows, depth increases. When results delay, capacity expands. This is not wasted time. This is structural reinforcement. 5th, temporary collapse does not cancel purpose. Some structures must fall so stronger ones can rise. What collapses was never meant to last. That breaking moment you fear may be clearing space for something far greater. Romans 8:28 reminds us, "In all things God works for the good of those who love him." Not some things, all things. If today feels confusing, it may be because change is happening beneath the surface. What looks like decline might actually be redirection. Why waiting builds power? Waiting is one of the hardest experiences a person can face, not because nothing is happening, but because everything feels unfinished. Time moves, others advance, answers remain distant, and inside a quiet struggle begins. 1. Waiting exposes what controls you. When action stops, motives surface. Restlessness reveals dependence. Impatience uncovers hidden fears. This pause is not empty, it is revealing. The Bible says in Lamentations 3:26, "It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord." Stillness teaches what movement hides. 2. Strength develops when outcomes are delayed. Immediate results create excitement. Delayed outcomes develop endurance. Anyone can move when results are visible. Few remain steady without reassurance. That is why waiting shapes resilience. It builds the ability to continue without signs, signals, or certainty. This capacity cannot be rushed. 3. Control must loosen before trust deepens. Humans want timelines. God works with intention. When plans stall, control slowly slips away, and that discomfort is purposeful. Trust does not grow when everything is predictable. It grows when certainty disappears and surrender takes its place. Proverbs 3:5 reminds us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." Understanding is not a requirement for faith. 4. Delay protects you from premature arrival. Reaching something too early can damage what you are not ready to carry. Wait requires capacity. Responsibility requires maturity. That is why timing matters. What you want immediately might overwhelm you today. Waiting prepares you to handle tomorrow. 5. Endurance outlasts urgency. Urgency burns fast. Endurance remains. Those who last are not always fast movers. They are consistent carriers. Waiting teaches persistence without pressure, movement without panic, progress without force. This is quiet strength. If the pace feels slow, it may be because depth is increasing. What seems delayed is often developing stability. Why invisible growth matters most. Not everything that grows makes noise. Not everything that changes can be seen. Some of the most important work happens far from attention, and that truth frustrates many people. 1. What develops underground determines what stands above. Roots expand in darkness. No applause, no recognition. Yet they decide how high something can rise. A structure without depth collapses under pressure. Strength begins where visibility ends. Jesus said in Matthew 13:31-32, "The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. Though it is the smallest, it grows into the largest of garden plants." Small beginnings often carry great outcomes. 2. Hidden seasons build integrity. When no one is watching, values are tested. Consistency without an audience reveals sincerity. It's easy to act when praised. It's harder to remain faithful in obscurity. That unseen discipline creates stability later. What you do quietly shapes who you become publicly. 3. Inner alignment matters more than outer achievement. Success without balance creates collapse. Achievement without grounding leads to exhaustion. That is why progress often starts inside. Perspective adjusts, priorities shift, identity strengthens. This internal alignment keeps success from destroying you. The Bible says in Proverbs 4:23, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Direction follows condition. 4. Visibility is not proof of value. Noise attracts attention. Depth sustains impact. Many things shine briefly and disappear quickly. What lasts is rarely rushed into the spotlight. Time tests authenticity. Pressure reveals substance. Quiet growth produces lasting fruit. 5. What matures slowly remains strong. Fast growth creates fragile results. Slow development builds endurance. The process you wish would hurry is forming capacity, not just for success, but for responsibility, influence, and longevity. If this phase feels unnoticed, it may be protecting what is becoming unshakable. If progress feels invisible, it does not mean it is absent. It may simply be happening where only time can reveal it. Why resistance increases before change? There is a point in every journey where difficulty intensifies, not suddenly, not randomly, but noticeably. This is often the moment when many misinterpret what is happening. 1. Opposition signals movement. Still water attracts little force. Moving currents face resistance. When pressure rises, it usually means something is shifting. Comfort rarely triggers opposition. Progress often does. This friction is not a warning sign. It is an indicator of motion. 2. Pushback reveals direction. Resistance tends to appear when alignment improves. The closer something moves toward its intended position, the stronger the tension becomes. That tension confirms trajectory. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians 16:9, "A great door for effective work has opened to me, and there are many who oppose me." Opportunity and opposition often arrive together. 3. Pressure tests commitment. When things become harder, motivation alone is not enough. This phase demands resolve. Excitement fades quickly. Conviction remains. What keeps you moving now is not how you feel. It's what you decided earlier. 4. Resistance refines focus. Distraction loses its appeal when challenges demand clarity. Choices become simpler. Priorities sharpen. What matters stays. What doesn't falls away. This narrowing is intentional. Focus is born in friction. 5. Endurance converts pressure into strength. Weight builds muscle. Stress builds capacity. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable through persistence. The struggle that threatens to stop you is often shaping what will sustain you. Romans 5:3-4 reminds us, suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. Pressure does not destroy hope, it forges it. If resistance feels heavier now, it may be because change is near. What pushes against you might be confirming your direction. Why letting go comes before moving forward. Forward movement sometimes requires release, not effort, not struggle, but surrender. Many people try to carry what was only meant for a previous chapter, and that weight slows everything. 1. Holding on can block progress. Clinging feels safe. Familiarity feels comfortable. Yet comfort can quietly limit expansion. What once helped you may no longer serve where you're going. Growth often asks for space. 2. Release is not loss, it is transition. Letting go does not erase value, it honors timing. Every season has a purpose. Not every season is permanent. The Bible reminds us in Philippians 3:13, forgetting what is behind and reaching forward to what lies ahead. Forward focus requires backward release. 3. Identity shifts require separation. You cannot step into a new role while wearing an old label. Transformation demands detachment from versions that no longer fit. This includes habits, expectations, and even certain relationships. Change becomes real when identity aligns with direction. 4. Empty hands receive more. What is tightly held leaves little room for increase. Release opens capacity. Surrender is not weakness, it is trust in movement. The Bible says in Ecclesiastes 3:6, a time to keep and a time to throw away. Wisdom recognizes the difference. 5. Freedom fuels momentum. When unnecessary weight drops, movement becomes lighter. Decisions become clearer. Energy returns. What once drained you no longer defines you. This freedom is not accidental. It is intentional alignment. If something feels difficult to release, it may be because the next chapter requires lighter hands. What you release today creates room for tomorrow. Why obedience unlocks? What effort cannot? There comes a point where striving reaches its limit. No amount of force changes the outcome. No extra planning moves the moment. Something else becomes necessary. 1. Obedience moves what strength cannot. Effort relies on ability. Obedience relies on alignment. Many people exhaust themselves trying to achieve what requires agreement. Alignment opens pathways that persistence alone cannot access. The Bible says in 1 Samuel 15:22, "To obey is better than sacrifice. Right action outweighs endless effort." 2. Direction matters more than intensity. Running fast in the wrong direction still leads away from purpose. Focus without alignment creates frustration. When direction is correct, even small steps produce momentum. That is why obedience feels simple yet carries deep power. 3. Obedience often precedes understanding. Clear instructions rarely come with explanations. God reveals steps, not the full map. This tests humility. The willingness to move without complete clarity demonstrates trust beyond logic. Hebrews 11:8 reminds us, Abraham obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. Movement came before comprehension. 4. Alignment attracts provision. When actions match intention, support appears naturally. Resources respond to direction. What feels blocked often opens when alignment shifts. Obedience places you where provision already exists. 5th, obedience positions you ahead of timing. Some doors open not because of pressure, but because of positioning. Obedience places you early, before others recognize the moment. This is quiet advantage. What looks simple carries strategic weight. If striving has drained you, it may be time to shift approach. What effort could not unlock, alignment can open effortlessly. Why endurance leads to fulfillment? Every long journey reaches a moment where everything begins to connect. The confusion, the pressure, the waiting, the resistance. None of it was random. 1. Endurance completes what intention begins. Many people start with passion. Few continue with perseverance. Beginnings are exciting. Completion requires stamina. Endurance is what carries vision through uncertainty, delay, and opposition. The Bible says in Hebrews 10:36, "You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what He has promised." Receiving is tied to remaining. 2. Consistency reveals trust. Endurance is quiet faith in motion. It shows up without applause. It continues without guarantees. It remains when outcomes are unclear. Trust is not proven in comfort. It is revealed through continuation. Each step forward, even when unseen, is an act of belief. 3. Fulfillment arrives differently than expected. What you imagine may not look like what arrives. Fulfillment often feels calmer, deeper, more grounded than anticipated. It brings peace more than excitement, clarity more than noise. The Bible reminds us in Ephesians 3:20, God is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. What arrives may exceed expectation in ways you didn't predict. 4. Your journey becomes someone else's hope. What you survive now carries meaning. Your endurance becomes evidence. Your persistence becomes testimony. Others will recognize strength not in your words, but in what you walked through and did not abandon. Nothing was wasted. 5. This was never just about reaching a place. It was about becoming someone. Someone steady, someone grounded, someone prepared. The struggle shaped capacity, the process shaped character, the endurance shaped identity. That is the real reward. Final closing, complete resolution. If it was hard, it was because it mattered. If it took time, it was because it required depth. And if you are still standing, it is because you were built to last. James 1:12 declares, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life." This is not the end. This is the beginning of impact. Stay steady, stay faithful, and remember, now you know why it was hard.